How y'all, Wyrm here. So recently I did a video outlining the recent history of Sharlayan and where they stand as Endwalker approaches. But while I was doing all that research on this topic, something started to really bug me, specifically about the ship lying in Girabania. I had planned ages ago to do a video on this ship until an idea struck me. Alright, let's face it, the thing looks so out of place in Eorzea, it's like seeing a UFO parked on a runway next to a jumbo jet. So my idea is this: Nuncraft sailed this ship to Eorzea, but where did he get the knowledge to build something like this? Not only that, the feats he and the ship are recorded doing seem way out of place and more powerful than anything we've seen. Is it possible that Nuncraft, the founder of Sharlayan, is actually an Ascian? Let's investigate. Firstly, on the Ascians. The main reason this theory seems so plausible to me is because it's not the first time an Ascian has either founded a nation or had a direct hand in its development. You need look no further than the Garlean Empire. Emet-Selch, under the guise of the Emperor Solus, directly got involved and allowed the Garlean civilization to reach the dramatic heights by passing on knowledge to them, while also being the one in charge and steering the course of their development into what the Empire is today. And that's not even the first time. Emet-Selch has also had an involvement in the development of the Allagan civilization, arguably one of the most advanced civilizations to ever grace the star of Hydaelyn, after the ancient Ascians of course. He influenced Xande, the first and last emperor of Allag, in its founding, so the Ascians, or at least Emet-Selch, had a direct guiding hand in their beginning, but likely a lot more. Now then, back on topic about Sharlayan and Nuncraft. Let's go through his story from the very beginning and see what we can uncover. Turn the pages back of the Eorzean Encyclopedia to the twilight of the 6th Umbral era, around 1500 years ago, give or take a few decades. The War of the Magi raged across Eorzea. A quick TLDR, this was a war between Hatch, Amdapor and Nim, the biggest and most powerful nations in Eorzea at the time. Now, far to the north of Eorzea lies Erzland, the ancestral home of the Rogadin race. It's here that a Rogadin scholar, a man by the name of Nuncraft, resided. Historical record states he foresaw the flood using astrology, and that it would strike Eorzea as a consequence of the War of the Magi. Let's examine this very carefully. It's called a flood, but we know it as a rejoining of a shard world to the source, orchestrated by the Ascians. But the direct result of this would be a cataclysm of water, hence the term flood. Now, using astrology, given what the rejoining actually is very possible. Hatch saw it coming, thus they built the Void Ark to escape it. But it's not very clear if the other nations did as well. Now, it's possible that Nuncraft was just intelligent enough in the workings of Aether and astrology. Or maybe he had access to some ancient technology, possibly of Allagan nature, so he could see the rejoining coming. Now, we know the direct result of this rejoining was rapidly rising waters and tidal waves. But what if it's something more? What if Nuncraft was one of the first to know because he's not just a Rogadin scholar, but actually he's the guise taken by an Ascian? Now, knowing that a calamity is coming isn't enough to brand somebody an Ascian, because other people saw it coming as well. But let's look at some of the most compelling pieces of evidence that can. Back to the encyclopedia. Nuncraft finds out about the flood and then sets a plan in motion. He builds a giant magical ark from wood, dubbed Nuncraft's Hope, and sails to Eorzea with a crew of volunteers to try and convince everybody about the flood, and when it hits, save as many as he can. Now, a couple things here. The flood's on the way and his main action is to sail to Eorzea. We don't have many records about these events, but does this mean that his homeland of Erzland will be spared from the flood? Or have actions already been taken for the safety of his people? My guesses would be the latter. No way you sail to a foreign land if your people would be at risk, but that's just my personal opinion. Either way, it's strange. The flood wouldn't just affect one continent. Everybody would be at risk. Historical record from the time confirms that massive tidal waves were common in this flood, and they caused most of the destruction. But regardless, Nuncraft, his ship and crew are sailing to Eorzea. Things are a downright mess and they rescue many souls from ships they encounter or people who were set adrift. As they closed in on the coast of Eorzea, they spotted a massive tidal wave that would surely tear Nuncraft's hope to splinters. Now, I promised you some evidence, and it's the ship itself. As I mentioned at the start of the video, this thing's far different from any vessel yet encountered. It appears to use magical propulsion instead of sails or engines. Take Hatch for example. Their entire nation came together to build the Void Ark. Are we to believe that Nuncraft built this thing on his own? Personally, I don't believe that. It's possible that he actually just found it. But if that's the case, how is he powering it? I think this all lends weight to the theory that Nuncraft is an Ascian. An Ascian could use their abilities to create such a vessel, and it could be fueled by their aether, or utilise the environments. Let's turn the page and see what happens next, and where we get our next piece of evidence. The flood hits, and Nuncraft has everyone he could rescue on board the ship. However, the tidal waves and floods are bearing down on them. It's at this point that Nuncraft invokes an ancient and powerful spell that teleports the entire ship high into the peaks of Girabania, where it rests to this very day. And may I say, for sitting there for 1500 years, it looks like a brand new car. No one's stolen it or even looted the thing. Now, this is our second piece of evidence that Nuncraft is an Ascian. He used the spell to transport himself, the ship, and the countless souls aboard it a massive distance into the mountains. That's an unbelievable feat. No one in the modern age of the game has heard of a spell with such power. Now sure, we can transport ourselves places using Aether and the Lifestream, but that's just transporting ourselves and the items we carry. Nuncraft transported an entire ship and an army of people aboard. In my opinion, this is the strongest evidence that Nuncraft is an Ascian. Now think about this for a moment, what other being would have such power to pull off a spell like that? If anyone else tried this spell, even if they knew it either wouldn't work or it would kill them if they tried. Yet Nuncraft did it. He survived this spell and everyone on the ship did as well. After the floodwaters receded, Nuncraft and the survivors left the ship and travelled north, where Nuncraft built another ship to take them to the island where Sharlayan would be founded. And the rest, of course, is history. Alright, let's recap and see where we stand. Nuncraft knew about the flood, aka rejoining, before most others. He somehow built a magical ark unlike anything people have seen, sailed it to Eorzea and rescued people. When things got rough, he actually teleported the entire thing far into the mountains. Now if this doesn't make him a subject of being an Ascian, I'm not sure what would. If this were Among Us for example, this guy would have been spaced right after he used that spell for being very sus. But what do you all think about this theory? Or do you have any knowledge or theories of your own on this matter? Let everybody know your opinion in the comments. As usual, if you enjoyed this content, be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more. Thanks all, and now, as always, have a good one.